Well, hi, everybody. Thank you for coming. My name is Brian Rogers. I'm with Aeko Technologies. We are a IT managed services company here in Fort Worth, Texas. I'm really happy to be able to do this for EO Fort Worth. One of the first questions I get asked when somebody sees the name of our company is, how do you pronounce it, which is Aeko, and what does it mean? And Aeko is actually the Hawaiian word for eagle, and as much as I love North Texas in the spring, I really like to be in Hawaii right about now. I want to talk a little bit about myself and kind of why we're here, just so everybody knows. I was raised in El Paso, Texas, came to Fort Worth in '93 to go to TCU. I met Heather while I was there. She was a showgirl. I was the band nerd, and she was way out of my league, but fortunately I got the ring on her finger before she figured that out. We have two great teenage boys, Jeremy and Zachary. Professionally, I've been in IT for a little over 20 years. 10 of those years I actually spent at a $12 billion S&P 500 energy company. It was an amazing experience because I was able to actually manage over the entire domain of IT. I had a $25 million budget, and instead of being in the individual silos like you usually get in a corporate IT environment, I was able to be have purview over the entire realm of IT, which is a great experience. When I left my corporate IT job to get out to help SMBs, I wanted to bring that experience that the enterprise IT staff knew and utilized, bring that to the small and medium-sized businesses. So I was really excited about it. It's no longer a $12 billion company. As a matter of fact, I think earlier this week, they might have been paying you to take their stock for the way the oil and gas industry went, unfortunately. A couple of things about how this is going to go today. I just want to talk about the cybersecurity basics and how they translate from the office into a remote working environment, some different remote working opportunities and options and best practices. I'm going to touch on Zoom. Obviously, we're on a Zoom call right now. Zoom is really taking it on the chin right now from a security standpoint. And I really want to talk about what does that mean? Are there real concerns, legitimate concerns, and things along those lines? Talk about some productivity tips on how to be an effective distributed workforce, and then talk a little bit about planning for the future. So going to jump right into it and first talk about the oldies but goodies. You know, fishing and spearfishing have become part of our daily life just in a regular work environment. They're emails that we're getting, phishing emails, or emails that are coming in directly, coming to us kind of at a scatter shoot. They're just trying to get you to click on something. And they're kind of non-specific, but they're trying to get you to click on a link or download an attachment or submit some information, some personal information that they can identify for you. Spearfishing is going to be a little bit more targeted. It's going to be something where they've done some research on you, done some research on your company, and are really trying to do some more focused emailing. This is called social engineering, and it tends to be very, very effective, especially when they start to dig in and do some spearfishing stuff. So this would be an example of the spearfishing that is happening right now. You know, we're all, as business owners, scrambling to try and find what's the latest news in the SBA 3P program or the idle loans or just kind of anything that's out there to help us stay afloat in all this. This was an email that a small business owner received, as you can see. So they knew that they were going to be waiting to hear for something from the SBA. So the email address is blacked out, but you can't see that it wasn't actually from the SBA, but it has all the hallmarks that looks like an email. And so it's encouraging people to double click on this and download it. In this case, it was going to download a malicious payload. But this email is designed to take advantage of the fact that people are starving for information and are going to click on whatever it is that comes in really quickly. If you actually read the email, you'll actually see in a lot of ways it doesn't make sense. Please endeavor to complete the small business disaster form, and endeavor is actually spelled with a V-O-U-R, a more British spelling of the word. Same thing with testing centers. And if you actually look at that last line about testing centers, not only is centers spelled R-E-S instead of E-R-S like we typically do here in the States, that line actually doesn't fit with the rest of the email. So, but it requires a critical reading of the email in order to see this. And so it really requires you to be on guard and not drop your guard in the midst of all this. And that brings me to the golden rule of cybersecurity. This is what I say all the time. When in doubt, don't click. If there's any doubt at all, if you see anything that looks out of the ordinary, pick up the phone and call who sent it to you. Call the bank, go to the website. Now, again, in this day and age, I've been trying to get in touch with banks. I've been trying to get on with the SBA. You can't do that. It's really hard, but just be really, really careful about what you click on and what you click on, what you download, what you open, because the last thing you want to do is be stuck at home on your personal computer and get ransomware that locks up the computer that is your only lifeline to the business that you're really just trying to save as it is. So that's a really big thing that you need to consider at all times, but even more so here and now. Another thing that's really been really popular are VPNs. VPN is virtual private networks. So many people are actually using them as a regular part of their business flow. They connect to their offices, they have a remote workforce, and they're leveraging VPNs. And basically what it is an extension of your office network outside the walls of your office. So when you get in and do that, you're actually opening up your network to whatever that other computer is. So one of the biggest concerns when you're talking about trying to use your employees' home computers to connect to VPN is that you're now exposing your corporate network to whatever stuff might be on that computer. And if they're using the free version of Panda software, and it's the same computer that their teenager has been downloading the latest Gears of War pirated copy or movies, then you're also getting all the other crap that comes with all that stuff. So you're really at the mercy of your corporate network, is at the mercy of the security measures that your employees are using. So there are really some things that you might need to do to make sure you mitigate that. There are things you can do on the VPN to control that, but it requires a controlled rollout and some forethought in doing so. The other thing to really keep in mind is that it's not supported by some software vendors. A couple of our customers, in order to try and mitigate that security risk of what's going on their home computers, actually told their employees to just pick up their computers and take them home. It was a great option. Our security suite was already on it. They already had that security there. Those computers were doing nothing sitting in the office, so they picked them up and set them up at home. Well, in doing so, one of the problems they ran into is companies like Intuit for QuickBooks don't support accessing the software across the VPN. So when you're going through and trying to run QuickBooks from your home across the VPN, you actually run the risk of corrupting the database on QuickBooks. And if you call Intuit and you tell them that you were actually using it in this arrangement, they won't even talk to you. So there's some concerns when you're talking about using VPN. It's a great option, especially if you already have purchased the specific equipment. If you are one of these companies that's using the same firewall that came with your Comcast internet service, for example, you don't have the ability to run VPN anyways. But if you've made an investment in a really great edge security product like a Meraki or a SonicWall, something along those lines, then you actually have the capabilities to do VPN. And it might be a good fit for you, but there are some considerations. You need to be very careful about allowing your employees' home computers to connect directly into your network via VPN or even just plugging in at the office. So another option for remote working is actually remote access software. LogMeIn, TeamViewer, Remote PC, Splashtop. The one we really like to recommend is Splashtop because we think it gives the best value for features and cost. And basically what this is you put an agent on the computer that you're trying to access in the office. It's a listening agent. And then you either go to the computer from which you're trying to communicate from. It might be a home computer, it might be a laptop, it could even be a Chromebook, and you install an agent on that computer or you go to a web portal, and basically you're connecting through a secure protocol to this agent on this machine. All the compute happens in the office. So it's just as if you are sitting in front of that computer in the office, same speeds going from the server to the desktop, and you're just streaming a picture over to it. From a security standpoint, it's actually much greater than VPN. You're actually not exposing your network to files that are on those other computers. It's really easy to spin up and spin down. It doesn't require any special equipment. However, there are some other caveats there. One of them, obviously, there is a cost. There's a monthly fee to all the ones that are secure. There's also an element of the bandwidth utilization. If you have 50 employees that are all trying to remote into that one computer there in the office, and you don't actually have the best business internet connectivity, you can saturate that and cripple it for everybody. So those are some of the things that you need to consider when you're trying to evaluate a business continuity plan and you're trying to see how you're going to enable a remote workforce. Those are some of the big considerations there when you're talking about a remote access software package like LogMeIn or Splashtop, something along those lines. Something that is that I personally, my personal thoughts on the remote access software is that we do not recommend TeamViewer. It's a little bit of a clunky interface anyways, but the biggest reason for doing that is that every hacker in the known world uses TeamViewer as their as part of their toolkit. About 70% of the time when we're doing a forensic analysis on a computer that's been compromised, the TeamViewer agent has been installed on there. It's a free, that's why people like it. It's also why hackers like it. So we really don't recommend using TeamViewer at all. Another thing from a security standpoint, Zoom. Everybody's hearing about the Zoom security stuff that's been going on. Companies like Google and Tesla are just outright blocking it. The US Senate is saying, look, we're not going to block it, but we really, really, really recommend that you be very careful with it. Most of these issues are actually coming from they're security issues, and a lot of them have already been taken care of. You've heard about Zoom bombing and the schools in New York when people were jumping in on the classrooms and disrupting the classrooms. A lot of those kind of superfluous issues have been taken care of through the use of passwords and different things. One of the big things that's outstanding is their use of end-to-end encryption. And this is the one thing that's kind of getting hit on. It's kind of a geeky term, not going to get into it. The crux of the matter is they're claiming end-to-end encryption, and that's not happening. Now, that only matters for, you know, national security type things, or if you actually have some very sensitive information and you're concerned about industrial espionage, because yes, a very determined, concerted, and capable hacker can in fact get in and hack in and listen onto your Zoom meetings. However, for the most part, it is generally safe for most everybody else. For your touchpoint meetings, for your customer demos, they've really made some great steps and great strides here in the last couple of weeks to shore that up. The fact of the matter is, they played fast and loose with security going into it. They wanted to be the quick and easy one. They took it over basically. They became the Kleenex to facial tissues that Zoom is now that to web conferencing. And so there are other options out there. If you are concerned about the security, GoToMeeting is what we use because our VoIP posted phone system is owned by LogMeIn and gets bundled into it. Interface looks very, very similar, works very well, but it had more of a security focus going into it. Cisco WebEx was one of the first ones out there. It's also very secure focused and doesn't suffer from some of the issues that Zoom is suffering from there. Oh, I'm sorry, one last thing. Mac users. So many Mac users get very cavalier about security. They think they do not get viruses. There are no vulnerabilities. And one, that's not true. You do need to have some sort of endpoint protection put on there because there are Mac viruses that are out there. But secondly, this is a case where Mac is actually less secure than their Windows counterparts. So if you'll notice, there for a few days, those of you that are on Zoom meetings pretty frequently, you've probably seen on a Mac for 3 or 4 days in a row, there was always an update, always an update. Well, there were some very serious vulnerabilities that actually allowed people to take control of your Mac computers. And so make sure you're actually doing those updates because most of those have been mitigated, but it's definitely something to keep in mind. So moving off of straight security stuff and into just more remote enablement. You know, one of the things that has happening right now is people are just realizing that email is just not cutting it anymore. Email, it's obtrusive, it's mixed in with all kinds of other information. For us, it's email alerts. For customers, it's people trying to sell us stuff. And so legitimate emails and communications between people within your office really get lost in the mix. And the larger your workforce and the more communication that's having to happen, that becomes more and more difficult to kind of track with email. So what a lot of companies are doing is they're moving to some persistent messaging platforms. The two big ones are Slack and Microsoft Teams. We're a Microsoft partner, so I'll actually speak to Teams. It's also what we use. And basically, these are communication platforms that give you a lot of different options just in one pane of glass. Yeah, you can use it as just a straight up instant messaging platform. You can send direct messages to individuals. You can send messages to groups. And it works like a straight AOL Instant Messenger type platform if you want to use it that way. Another really great feature of this, though, is that you can create individual channels for different parts of your productivity. You know, in our case, we actually have a support channel. We have an orders channel. We can go through and have a projects channel and things like that. And then when we have a question or a comment that's relative to one of those specific areas, we can actually put it in one of those channels, and people will know that that's where you go to look for this kind of stuff. So if we need to go look for information about a laptop that's being ordered or have questions about that, we put that in our orders. And then somebody puts that question out there, whoever has the answer goes in and replies to that one question. And that gets threaded to that, and then now they all get grouped together. And so what happens now is you're able to organize your questions and answers according to topic, not just with the large topics, but the individual questions within them. And you're really able to efficiently communicate with everybody. They've also got some really cool features like video conferencing. I'm doing a twice weekly touch point meeting with my staff, and we've got it set up in Microsoft Teams. It's scheduled. Teams is integrated with our Windows calendar, so we can create a meeting in Teams and it gets added to our calendar. Everybody gets to talk on there. A lot of times, if I'm going to try and ask a question and it's just a little bit too much to type in an instant message, I'll just do a video. I'll just click on the video button and I'll do a video call to the person that I'm trying to communicate with. It's the equivalent of being able to get up and walk down the hall and talk to them without having to do that and exposing ourselves. So there's some really, really great audio and video capabilities with both Slack and Teams. The great thing about Teams is depending on your Microsoft licensing level, you may already have it included in your licensing and can add it at no cost. Looking forward now, what COVID has really done from a business standpoint is highlighted obviously a lot of our gaps. And in the case of what we're talking about here, it's highlighted the fact that disasters are not necessarily just fires, floods, tornadoes. You know, we live here in Fort Worth, it's springtime. Everybody thinks about the tornado 20 years ago that came through and hit downtown. And that invariably, when I'm talking about a disaster and business continuity plans, that kind of thing is what jumps into customers' minds. But really, business continuity covers a whole breadth of different things. And the fact is, I love business continuity. BC is my jam. I love it, and it's an exciting part about what we do because it allows me to really engage with the business, learn a lot more about the business, and then help to come up with some creative ways to make sure that you can keep running in the face of a disaster. So, quick story: I was actually out skiing when the great toilet paper shortage of 2020 kicked off. And I was out every day we came off the mountain, we were getting little tidbits of information, but I really didn't start to dig into what was going on until we were driving back that Saturday. And so we got back Saturday night and I was digging into it. Sunday is when a lot of the stay-at-home orders came out. And because I do insist on having a survivable business, and we do actually have some business continuity plans in place, we actually exercise those every month or two. And we know exactly what we're going to do in this kind of a situation. So I was able to send out a message Sunday night and said, all right, guys, y'all are seeing the news. Go ahead and stay, work from home. And that was it. Everybody just kind of fired up. Everybody worked from home. And we were able to absorb a 300% increase in our ticket load. For the next 2.5 to 3 weeks, our ticket load increased 300%. Our static open ticket load at the end of each day only increased by 50%, and we were doing that working in a reduced business continuity, executing our business continuity plan. So that kind of shows how valuable a business continuity plan can be, because that you can absorb that kind of a load and really not skip a beat. So the way that happens, again, you start looking at different cloud computing options. You look at different things like cloud computing has different meanings to different people. But there's been a real game changer for a lot of people here in the last 5 or 6 months with Windows Virtual Desktops. And basically that allows you to run your Windows desktops in the cloud environment right next to Azure workstations. So that's going to allow you to connect and have full computing capacity within a cloud environment. And you can connect to those from a tablet. You can do it from a Chromebook. You can connect from a Wise terminal or just another computer, and really have this amazingly survivable infrastructure all in the cloud. So it's really something that I think a lot of people are going to start to explore now that we've seen what can happen in this kind of an environment. Another thing that's been really critical for a lot of people is having a hosted VoIP solution. You know, a lot of companies have VoIP phone systems. Excuse me, VoIP is voice over IP. It's a great evolution in voice traffic, and it's basically voice traffic being treated as data traffic. So again, great evolution. A lot of people are running VoIP solutions on premises. However, if you can't get on premises or you lose connectivity to those premises, that phone system still doesn't do you any good. So hosted VoIP solutions, those companies that have invested in those, the one that we sell is called Jive. It has been a godsend to us because when I just said, okay, everybody work from home, they said, okay. And they put on their headsets at home and fired up the soft phone on their computer, and they're working just as if they were working in the office. So there's some great key components to a business continuity plan and the ability to help you have a distributed workforce. So that's the end of the informational part of all this. One thing I'd like to extend to anybody that sees this is I'd just like to offer up some time. If you want to actually talk about some of these things in here where we're talking about a business continuity disaster recovery plan, we actually have a worksheet that does a BCDR readiness assessment that we can work through and talk through and see where you stand on that. If you want to talk about Windows Virtual Desktop, cloud computing, hosted VoIP, give me a shout, shoot me an email at this email address. I'd be happy to give you 30 minutes to sit down and kind of walk through and help you to navigate where you are and see if you've got any questions that or just need some light shed on different aspects of your operation. So happy to do that. brian.rogers@aekotech.com. Feel free to shoot me an email and happy to help you out. So that's the end of all that, and I'd like to see if there are any questions.
Hey, Brian, this is Lance. I don't have a question, but that was outstanding. Good job. I definitely we need to get that out on social media, like immediately.
Thanks, Lance.
Yeah, I agree, Brian. Great job. And I'll echo, and I learned this from Brian, is Microsoft Teams. Man, unbelievable, how much that's helped our businesses since we sent everybody home.
It's a really powerful platform. It's come a long way. It used to be Skype for Business. They rebranded it and added a bunch of other features, and it's constantly evolving. It's really turning into a really great platform and very, very powerful.
And so it's been around how long, Brian? A couple of years?
Yeah, Teams has been around a couple of years. It was running in parallel with Skype for Business, and then they took some of the Skype for Business features and just kind of incorporated that into Teams, and then Skype for Business went away. So it's been around for a couple of years. Microsoft's doing a great job here of late. It used to be you didn't start with Microsoft came to market with something, you gave it 5 or 6 years before it was ready for prime time. But they've done a much better job of hitting the ground running, and it really has been a great platform.
It was such a great suggestion, Brian, that even when we go back, even when we're in the same office, we're going to use Teams.
Well, and Don, you and I have talked about the fact that you guys actually are going to take advantage of the APIs, and you're actually going to be doing plugins and incorporating some custom programming into the messaging features within Teams, which is, again, part of the power of the platform is that you have that open API that you're able to integrate with that.
Yeah, it was a great suggestion. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Oh, go ahead.
The Microsoft Teams is an interesting concept for me in a dental office, but man, I could see us using that in order to reach out to folks, because email is kind of a pain in the butt for everybody in my office. I'd never heard of that before. That's great.
Yeah, and Justin, that's actually something that a lot of companies were already exploring even before COVID-19 came up, because email is just so obtrusive and it's just in your face. And it's just getting to be this huge filing cabinet that people are using. They're not actually, storing any of the files. They're just relying on email. And so it slows down email. And what Teams does is it takes that information and allows you to to basically do your own filing system. And in fact, there's actually even places where you can store files themselves.
Cool.
Hey, Brian, I haven't used Teams, but did it incorporate all the chat functionality from Skype?
It did. Yeah, for Skype for Business. Yeah.
Yep.
So
Okay.
they sure did.
And phone calling as well, because sometimes I use Skype to make phone calls.
They do, phone and video. So
Awesome.
Emily and I actually have to do a lot of communication pretty frequently, and instead of just doing the back and forth, I just do a video call and just kind of just call her and say, hey, let's hash this out real quick. And really, another thing for business owners and managers, one of the great parts of that aspect of it is you still get to see their countenance. You get to see how your employees are doing. You can see if the fire is still in their eyes, if they're kind of down, or and it's really helping to keep a pulse on something when you might not be able to do that otherwise.
That's a good point. Let's see. Yeah, it's good. It's a good way to stay connected. That's great. I'll have to check it out.
Thank you. Well, are there any other questions?
I'm good.
Well, Ronnie, I've made you the host.